Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the fall campaign in B-17 Flying Fortress Leader by DVG. We actually did a pretty good amount of damage last week to the airfield that we worked over related to the HO-229 that we're trying to keep Germany from getting active. So now let's continue the fall campaign. As usual, I've got my targets laid out. The green dice represent the aircraft factories, and the purple dice represent the airfields. So, let's start off with getting our SO points for the week. We get 15 SO points for the week, which brings me up to 16. And I've got an option at this point to buy new groups or commanders, but I think I'm going to sit tight on my SO points because I actually want to be able to buy some stronger firepower so I can do some damage this week, because I'd like to knock out... I'm going to be looking to try to knock out one of the airfield targets related to the SO-229. As Troy stops by, good morning, good luck on today's mission. Thanks, Troy. I'm just starting to set up everything that we're going to be doing on today's mission. So the airfield that I want to work on for sure is this one over here in Space 15. So I definitely want to work on that one. So I'll grab one of my chits so I can mark that. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, I'm not getting that far ahead of myself, since we're going to blow through purchasing group and commander to move down to targets that we want to attack. And as I mentioned, I do want to try to knock out this airfield this week. This one's related to the HO-229, and I'm at 7 airfield points, so this would actually give me the 3 I would need so that on the campaign I can avoid a dismal evaluation. And then what else do I want to work on? The other question is, do I want to continue to work on targets for the... Do I want to continue working over targets related to the the HO-229? And I think the answer... I think the answer to that is actually yes. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a second mission going after this airfield, this aircraft factory down here in Bonn. So we'll pull everything else away. So we're working over an airfield and an aircraft factory today. And then as far as the groups that I want to assign to each one, looking at the layout here, I'm looking at the layout of my groups off shot, in case you're wondering what I'm looking at here. Let's see. That only needs 4 more hits to get taken out. That's this airfield right up here. That's what I'm looking at there. They're going to need a stronger escort as well, so I think with that in mind, I want to send the Spitfire 4th on the group that's coming after this one, especially if that's the one I'm going to try to make sure I take out. And then we're just starting on this aircraft factory down here in Bonn. So this is week 2 of September 1942 that we're working on. And I think this layout actually looks pretty good. Aside from maybe wanting to move the Berlin Sleeper. No, I think this is fine. I think this is what we'll go with. So we'll send the Spitfire. So for this airfield over in, actually this one's in Göttingen, we'll send the Spitfire 4th. So Spitfire 4th, we'll send them after, what is that? SW01. Then we're sending the Berlin Sleeper after that target as well. Then we've got Paradise Lost and Hell's Angels. whereas going after the aircraft factory over Bonn, we've got the Spitfire 31st. That is SW02. The Grim Reaper. Looks like this is actually the same mission with a slightly different layout, but same targets that we're working over, but a slightly different group layout. So we've assigned our groups, so now we're arming our bombers. And since I decided to sit on adding any new groups to the squadron, because we've actually got a pretty nice balance. We've got a fighter squadron and 3 bombers, so that actually gives me a decent amount. So coming after this airfield, we definitely have dispersed weapons, so I want to make sure everybody's got at least some M30s. Actually, yeah, they're M30s, which give +2 bonuses against dispersed targets. So that's where we're going to start. We'll see if I want to load up on extra firepower. Let's see, everybody can take up to 6 tons of firepower. So we'll start off with 4. We'll start off with 4 tons of M30s for everybody. This is for all of our bombers that I'm setting up. Let's see. Okay. So now what do I want to do here? We've got everybody, as long as everybody stays okay, and I think all of our bombers are okay going into this mission. Paradise Lost is okay. Berlin Sleeper is also okay, but we need to be mindful of them. Hell's Angels should also be fine. They are. So everybody's okay going into this mission. Which means everybody's got a +1 air-to-ground modifier, except for the Berlin Sleeper because of the YB-40. They've actually got a net 0. So I think I want them hitting the target last. So I'm just going to arrange the ordering of my planes with... Actually, no, I want them hitting first because they're going to hit the... I want them hitting first because they've actually got the best air-to-air modifier with the YB-40. That gives them a +5 modifier. So now what do I want to do in terms of the last 2 tons? I think the Berlin Sleeper is going to get a little special firepower because of that net 0 air-to-ground modifier. So I'm going to spend... what? Actually, that's 3 tons, so I have to move some... And nothing here weighs... There's no 2-ton weapons here, so that's unfortunate. So I think I'm just going to give them a... So I'm just going to spend 1 SO point to give them at least an M34, so they've got something else they can hit a little bit lower on, so it's a little bit easier for them to hit. Actually, I'm going to spend 2 more SO points to give everybody an M43 bomb as well. So that's going to bring me down to 13 SO points. So let's find 2 more M34s. We'll load those up. They won't get the +2 bonus against dispersed targets, but it'll probably be fine. So we've purchased equipment for that. Tactics counters. Display mission setup. We don't necessarily go out to the camera for this, but I'll put the 4th fighter, I'll put the Spitfires on escort flying low. Then I want the 92nd Bomber Group, then the 97th, finally the 303rd. Now I'll bring the dice tower in so we can roll. I'll put it up over there. So now we're rolling for Luftwaffe response. And with Commander Ellers here, actually because of the campaign, we've got a -2 modifier. So I can probably expect a fairly weak response. That's an 8 minus 2 is a 6, which means, well, we would have had average response anyway. But the most important part here is the range, so only anybody in the immediate vicinity will, so anybody in the same hex will be attacking. So that means our target is out here. So let me go ahead and get this marked up. And then we'll map out the route we're going to take. So we'll be moving space 1. So here's our target. Space 2. Space 3. The Spitfires have a range of 4. So space 4 is going to be where the escort's going to return. And then space 5 will be back over the UK base. Okay. So let me do this. I'm going to call that group 1. Actually, let me find a different set of chits for that. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just use a couple extra dice. Because dice is clearly not something that a gamer has enough of. So I'm just going to put some dice off camera to remind me who's in what group. And we'll leave the targeting chits up there. Okay, so now we've got our first mission group all set to go. So this is the Spitfire, Berlin Sleeper, Paradise Lost, and Hell's Angels. Which means now we're flying over the target. So we get our average response chit up and shot, and I can probably leave the tower. I'm going to grab my smaller tower. So actually I'm going to grab a smaller tower, so bear with me just a second. Preferably one that's got a dice tray with it, and I know I'm working the closet door, and I know the tray I'm looking for, but it seems to have walked off. That's another tower, but it's not the tower I'm looking for. That's a tower I could use, but it's not the one I really want right now. Question is, what did I do with the tower I'm actually after here? It could not have possibly walked with Jesus on me. It didn't. I think that's the tower that we want, and we'll do that with it. Actually, no, that's got the Actually, I lied. I think I do want the green, more rickety tray. Let me see if I can bring the light in a little bit closer so you guys can see the die roll. Well, it looks like we can get most of the die roll in shot there. Okay. And we've at least got the relevant parts of the map out of the way here. And I just had the event cards in my hand. Okay, so we've got the average response set, which means we're all set for our first mission. So we've got the target bound events. We've got the event cards right here. We'll take the top section of this for a target bound event. Our first event for the day, AA fire. Uh-oh. Roll for each bomber group. 8 to 9, 1 destroyed, 10, 2 destroyed. This could be a problem. So I'm going to roll for all of them at once. And that's for each bomber group. So I'm going to roll pink for Hell's Angels, orange for Paradise Lost, and blue for the Berlin Sleeper. And I don't want to see any high rolls, especially Is this going to make anybody... could this make anybody shaken? Berlin Sleeper, potentially. Paradise Lost. Actually, I think everybody potentially. Yeah, everybody potentially, depending on high enough rolls. So let's see what we get here. And everybody ducks it, so we get away with one there. Very nice. I'll actually leave these dice close and grab some more out, because we'll use those when we go... Actually, we'll probably want to use the different... I'll think of how I want to do this, but I definitely want to do something similar when we get over the target. I'll think about how I want to do that, but I definitely want to do something similar to that, so we get away with one there. Which means we move the mission counter. And now, actually, here's a perfect situation. We need formation checks. Berlin Sleeper needs a 5+, Paradise Lost needs a 7+, and the Hells Angels need a 6+ to stay in formation. And the Berlin Sleeper is the only one that comes out of formation, which could cause problems if we get over the target with still being out of formation. Luftwaffe Squadron intercepts, but we have no interceptions to worry about here. Fighter groups return to base. They're not at their range. Squadrons rearm. We didn't have any squadrons attack. So now we go back up, which means now we're drawing our next event card. Luftwaffe redeployment. Pay 3 SOs to select any 3 German squadrons and reroll their map hexes. Do I think I want to worry about that? I think the answer to that is... I could potentially reroll these 3. The 3 directly in the missions that we're going to have. Let's see, that would leave me with 10 SO points going into the mission. So the risk here is I roll these 3, and then I end up with an even worse concentration than I did before. But you know what? We're going to do it. So we are going to pay the 3 SO points to re-roll the 3 squadrons in the immediate vicinity of both of our missions. And I believe the way we do this is we roll 2d10s, I want to say. Let me just double check that. 7. 2d10 and add them up. Okay. So we are going to roll, and actually we can just use any 2 of these dice. So we'll re-roll for the squadron right in our path first. Okay, that's a 10. So they're going to land there, which is going to turn any target into France into a nightmare. Then we'll roll for the one over this group's target. That's a 12, so they're actually going to move right into our path, which is fine. That's a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Then we'll roll for the one over the second group's target. That's a 14. So that group's going to move up here, which actually worked out pretty well for us, because that cleared the second group out of the way. So hopefully we're not going to get ambushed by any. We're not going to get ambushed by any squadrons. And actually, with a -2 modifier on the Luftwaffe response roll, we're not going to be very likely to get ambushed by anybody in this hex unless anybody moves in. Speaking of moving in, we are moving in. Formation checks once again, and then we're going to have another Luftwaffe. Then we're going to have another Luftwaffe squadron coming after us. Well, we're going to have a squadron coming after us. Okay, everybody gets back in formation. So that's the Berlin Sleeper coming back in formation, which means now we've got to deal with this Luftwaffe squadron. So that'll flip to a 1, and then we'll come over to our Bandit Cup, which I've got right here, and we'll draw for a bandit. Oh, wow. That is lucky. That's a no bandit shit. I will take that any day of the week. All right, fighter groups return to base. Squadrons rearm. So, actually, I think the squadron rearming here in this case means that the squadron just flips over. I just kind of shortcutted that. I'm just going to double check that real quick. That attack flipping over to the rearming side. Yep, okay. So I did shortcut that, which means we've got another target-bound event, and then our next turn will be over the target. Fighter miscommunication. Fighter escorts can't meet up with bombers. Remove fighter groups. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, then they move over. Formation checks. Hopefully everybody stays in formation. And the only one that stays, actually, everybody's out of formation. That's great. Okay. Then we don't have any squadrons intercepting. Fighter groups had to return to base. Squadrons rearm, which I believe that's anybody that attacked. Let me just double check how this works. If the number is a 1, flip it back to the squadron side. So now they're going to get right back in our way, coming back over the target. But now we're over the target, so we have our previous 7 damage that we have. That's actually medium damage. So we've got flak attack, which means we've got to roll flak for everybody over the target. As we remember, that's 2 rolls, 6 and 9 for hits. So let's see how everybody does. Ugh. Let's see, 6 and 9. So, that's a problem. I think everybody is going to end up shaking on this one. Let's see. So, blue was for the Berlin Sleeper. 7, actually, we've got durability that I've got to account for. So the 7 will modify to a 6, which is still enough to do one hit on the Berlin Sleeper. Actually, the Berlin Sleeper is still okay. And then the 2 modifies to a 1, so nothing happens there. For Paradise Lost, 10 modifies to a 9, which is going to be 2 hits. 4 modifies to a 3, which is going to be nothing. I think Paradise Lost is shaken. Then we've got the Hell's Angels, which 6 modifies to a 5, 3 modifies to a 2. So Hell's Angels are the only ones that are completely okay. Okay, so now that brings us over the target, which means now we start bombing the target. The Berlin Sleeper, we've got 2 M30s and an M43. So I'm going to roll 2 blue dice for the M30s and a pink die for the M43. The M30 hits on an 8 for 1 hit or a modified 10 for 2. After getting shaken, we lose the +0 we have a +0 on air to ground. The YB40 gives us a -1 air to ground, and they're out of formation, so that's going to net to a -3. Actually, that's going to net to a that's going to net to a -3. Whereas on the M43s, we get all minuses. -1 on the -1 for the YB40, and a -2 for out of formation, so this is just a straight -3. Okay, so let me just recalculate all of this out. So the M30s were... Okay, so +2 from the dispersed target, then a -2 for being out of formation, so a 0. -1 is a net -1, So actually, neither of the M30s hit, but a straight -3 on the M43 says that one is actually Berlin Sleeper. Berlin Sleeper is not shaken, actually. So hold everything on that. I think I calculated this wrong. So the Berlin Sleeper is okay. So we've got him +1 air to ground, which is canceled out by the YB40. So the M30s are straight rolls, which means one of those will do damage to the airfield. So that'll bring it up to 8 damage. And then we've got a... Oh, they attack fast. Actually, that's where fast is only relevant for air-to-air combat. +1, -1, that's a 0. -2, so that's actually... So the pink die, which is the M43, is actually a -2, which comes down to a 7, so that'll do 2 hits on the airfield. And we need one more hit to take it out. Unfortunately, I don't think we're very likely to... Well, we might actually get it. We'll have to see about that. So that's going to be up to 10 damage. So that's the Berlin Sleeper done. Wait. Oh yeah, never mind. So we're up to 10 damage there. So the Berlin Sleeper's all done. Now for Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost, I think 5, they did end up shaken. So we've got, so on the M30s, we've got a +2 modifier for the M30s, canceled out by the -2 for being out of formation, plus a -1, so that'll net out to be -1. The pink die, which will represent the M43, is another straight -3. So we need one more damage to take out this target. Which, as we check our modifiers, we did not get. So that's a total whiff for Paradise Lost. So they're still leaving us at 10 damage on that airfield. And now the Hell's Angels are in the same situation as Paradise Lost. So let's see what happens here. That pink die is cocked, so I'll reroll that. Not that it really mattered. So the M30s were a straight... Actually, the M30s were all -3. And okay, +2, -2, -1. So that's a net -1 on the M30s, which actually does give us the one hit, which is going to level the SW-01. Because everything else is going to modify down to not being a hit, but we got the one hit that we needed on that, so we do destroy it. Which means now we're turning our happy asses around and heading for home. So we'll bring the dice out of shot for the time being. Along with putting our chits back over here for weaponry. So, now we're drawing our homebound event, so now we want the event on the bottom. More damage than expected. Increase the target's final damage level by 2. Well, it doesn't get much higher than destroyed. Move them in, see if we can get everybody back in formation. Which, everybody except Hell's Angels will come back in formation. And then we'll have this squadron try to attack. I'd love to see another no bandit shit to make this mission easy. Excuse me. But of course, that is not a no bandit. That's a BF-110, 7, 8, 10, -1 defense modifier, and 3 turns. So we've only got the one, thankfully, to worry about. So, formation, Luftwaffe Squadron, interception. Okay, so we have to determine who it's attacking. I think everybody is just attacking the lead here. So everybody's going after the 92nd Bomber Group. So we need a... So we roll for bandit attacks. I thought I had a subchart for tracking how bandit attacks work. Well, at any rate, I can probably pull it out of... We don't have any tactics, I don't think, to worry about. No. So it just gets 3 turns in the current hex. Okay. So now it's attacking. And we do have a durability of 1. That's a 3, so it does nothing. And the Berlin Sleeper we established was okay, right? Yes. Actually, they attack first. So we're going to roll the attack for the Berlin Sleeper. Fast. Okay, so fast groups attack bandits. So we'll reroll the bandits. We'll reroll the Berlin Sleeper's attack, which is actually a +5. That's a 9, so we do flatten the BF-110. Which means we also take that shit away. That's a 3 supply. So we do manage to destroy that bandit. We'll set that to 1. And now we repeat steps. So we get another homebound event. Here we draw. Choppy weather. Perform formation check for all bomber groups each movement turn. Move the mission counter. Then we'll perform our formation check. This time, the Paradise Lost will actually drop out of formation. Luftwaffe no squadrons to intercept, so we repeat again. Homebound event. Here we draw. Fewer bandits. Reduce bandit interceptions by 1. Not that we had any that we were worried about, because now we're back over the UK base, and the mission is over. So now we're going to do recon as we reset our squadrons. Oop. There we are. Final target damage status. It is destroyed. Then we get VPs and experience, so we get the victory points from taking out that airfield. So that's another 3 victory points, which also brings us up to 10. Which also brings us up to 10 airfield victory points. So we're not going to have any we're not going to get a dismal campaign evaluation for that reason. We might still end up with a dismal campaign evaluation, though, depending on how well we do the rest of the campaign. So, right, if the target is destroyed, earn the victory points, and every group gets 2 experience since we destroyed the target. So the Spitfire 4th gets 2, which will be enough to promote him. We'll look at that in a second. Berlin Sleeper gets 2, not enough to promote. Paradise Lost gets 2, not enough to promote, but close. Hell's Angels gets 2, also not enough to promote. So as I mentioned, the Spitfire 4th will promote. They'll go from average to skilled, which gives them a +3, air-to-air modifier, still attacking during slow. 0 to 8's okay, 9 to 11's shaken. So Spitfire goes to skilled. And nobody else ended up promoted. So that is it for mission 1. Record group status, airfield, aircraft factory target steps. That was an airfield we leveled, so no problem there. Airfield target steps. What are the airfield target steps, by the way? Okay, doesn't look like anything there. So now we're going into our second group where we've got and I'm going to set up the dice the same way since I'll need them later. So now we've got our other mission, and now we've got to arm them. They're going after the aircraft factory in Bonn. I'll grab their counter. And they don't have any dispersed targets to worry about, so we're not going to get that bonus. But I think we are going to take are we going to take them anyway? We've got 10 SO points to play with, and I would like to do some damage on this target. So we just load up with M43s, go down to 1 SO point. Let's see. I definitely want Scarlet to have at least some special firepower, because they've got a -1 air to ground modifier, and how close are they to being being shaken is probably not as big of an issue as it's going to be for some of the others. Let me get the rest of these bomber chits down out of the way. Let's make sure everybody's okay. Grim Reaper is okay. Death Dealer is dangerously close to being shaken, but they've got a replacement 1. Scarlet is okay. So yeah, I think we're going to spend at least 3 SO points down to 7. Because with that -1 air-to-ground modifier is really bothering me. So I want them to have at least a little extra firepower so that that -1 doesn't turn into a problem. If they get out of formation, that could be even bigger trouble. Death Dealer's got a +0 air-to-ground modifier. Yeah, I think we are. Let's see if I have enough M43s to outfit everybody with them and go down to 1 SO point. I would need to have 6 more, and I do. So I think that is what we're going to do. We're going to take everybody down to, I think we're going to go down to 1 SO point, and I'm going to outfit everybody with M43s because I really want to work over this target. I really want to work over this target and try to knock out this special weapon if I can. I think that's going to be. Actually, I could clean myself completely out of SO points and give Death Dealer another M43. But I do want to do some damage and try to knock out this special weapon before they can get it. So I think that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean myself out of SO points, go down to 0, and give Death Dealer 1 more M43. And hopefully we're not going to have too many problems here. So 2, 3, and 4 will be their mission. I can leave the Dice Tower in shot. Purchase equipment, place tactics, display missions setup. So we're going to have the 31st Flying Escort. Then as far as order goes, I want Death Dealer. Actually, Death Dealer is going to take the lead group because they've got the +3 air-to-air modifier. Then we're going to put Grim Reaper and Scarlet. And that's how we're going to do that. I'm not too worried about the air-to-air modifier unless we get a surprise high roll. Actually, even if we get a surprise high roll, it's going to the special rule on the campaign is going to actually modify that down because it's a -2 on the roll. So let's see what we get for a Luftwaffe response. That's a 5 modified down to a 3, so that'll be poor response, which means no problem anyway. So I was being paranoid essentially over nothing. So that's Luftwaffe response, and let's get into our second mission. So we want a homebound target event. Or target-bound event. The Germans are adapting. Remove any tactics counters from 2 random groups. And unfortunately, the only tactic we have is suppress, so we're going to lose that. So that's a defense -2. Then we move mission counter, formation check. Same colors, we're rolling blue for Grim Reaper, orange for Death Dealer, and pink for Scarlet. 6 for the Grim Reaper, 5 for Death Dealer, 8 for Scarlet. And Death Dealer stays in formation. Everybody else comes out of formation, which is going to cause us problems when it's time to start working over the target. No squadrons to worry about there, no fighter groups returning, no squadrons rearming, so we loop back to another target-bound event. Follower. Increase Luftwaffe response by 1 level. So actually they're up to average now. Not that that's going to do any good because there's still nobody in the hex to worry about. So move mission counter, which means we're now over the target. Formation check. Grim Reaper comes in formation. Death Dealer now joins Scarlet out of formation. No squadron interception, fighter groups don't return, squadrons don't rearm, and we're over the target. So we have no previous damage. So we have no previous damage over the target, which means we've got flak attack. So these are 6, 7, 9, and everybody's got 2 attacks. Same color dice as we were rolling earlier. This time it's a 6, 7, 9. And everybody's got durability except for Death Dealer, so this could be a problem. Actually, I was about to say we dodged it, but I think we basically just took it to the dome. So let's work backwards. Grim Reaper has a durability of 1. 8 modifies to a 7. 9 modifies to an 8. So actually, Grim Reaper is taking 3 hits. Grim Reaper will end up shaken, but only just. Death Dealer's got no durability, which is fortunate because his rolls aren't going to modify to anything, so he's fine. Scarlet, 10 modifies to a 9, 3 modifies to a 2, so Scarlet takes 2 hits as well. And Scarlet is actually going to be okay, so the only one who got shaken up by that is Grim Reaper, because of course he did. This is why we loaded everybody up with bigger bombs. So now we start bombing the target, and everybody's got the M43s. So Grim Reaper's got 3 bites at the apple, and he's the one in formation. So was he the one shaken? Yes, he's shaken. So he's got a -1 air to ground. Let's hope we still roll high. That is not high. Well, is that high enough to do damage? Let's find out. So -1. 1 modifies to a 0. That does nothing. 6 modifies to a 5. 7 modifies to a 6. So that actually will be 2 hits on. That actually will be 2 hits on that aircraft factory. So 2 hits there. That is SW02. Grim Reaper dealt 2 hits. Okay, then we've got Death Dealer, who's also got... Actually, Death Dealer we established was okay. And he's got 4 rolls at it. Death Dealer, let me just double check. He is okay. So he's got 4 rolls at it. And he's actually out of formations. This is going to be a net -2 roll. So we still want high rolls. Well, so with a -2 roll, the 4s will modify to 2s, nothing happening. 7 will modify to a 5, 8 will modify to a 6. That'll be another 2 hits so that's already light damage. And that was Death Dealer, which means those are done. We'll get those chits out of the way. And finally, Scarlet has got 3 of them, has got 3 M43s. Scarlet, we established, was not shaken up, but is out of formation. So this is going to be a net -3 air to ground roll. Which the 6 will be a 9 modifying down to a 6 will be enough to do 1 damage. A 3 modified to a 0, 4 to a 1. So that will be 5 damage on the... That'll be 5 damage on the target. Not bad. Still light damage, but no help for that at this point. So now we're turning around and heading for home, which means now we draw another event card. So our next event card, Commander Killed check. Uh-oh. After the mission, for each group of the commander that took damage, roll a die. On a 9 to 10, the commander is killed. Yikes, that would be Commander LeMay. So the Grim Reaper, I'm almost certain, did take damage on this mission. Actually, that's how he ended up shaken, so yeah. He took damage on that. So now we're moving that group there. Mission counter, formation checks. No changes on formation. No squadron interception, we repeat. Last homebound event. Smooth weather. All bomber groups automatically pass all formation checks. Not that it really matters because we're back over the UK base and the mission's over. Before we do any kind of status, let's roll to see if Grim Reaper, let's see if LeMay was killed. On a 9 to 10, he is. That's an 8. He must have taken a pretty bad shot, but he'll be fine there. So we do duck it. Let's see. So final target damage status. So that's going to start off with light damage. I believe now is when we roll for possible repair. Right. Yep, so now we're at, we'll be at the end of the week in a second. So target 8, which was the aircraft factory, is now at light damage, so everybody gets 1 experience who participated. Spitfire 31st, definitely doesn't promote. Grim Reaper, also just promoted. Death Dealer, Scarlet, that's not enough to promote anybody, not a surprise there. Group status, we got all of that. No steps there. So now we're into end of week. So now we have to check to see if the aircraft factory up here repaired itself. Oops. And it needed a 9 to repair, so it does. It actually will go down to light damage. So we'll say it has 1 damage on it. But that will be it for this week's mission in the fall campaign of B-17 Flying Fortress Leader. Next week we'll probably continue working over that aircraft factory. I might want to see if I can take out the other airfield over Berlin, but that's going to be a daring mission to go through, especially since we're going to have to run the gauntlet of, well, I was going to say 4 Luftwaffe squadrons, unless we take a little more crazy route, although that's going to probably stretch everybody's range. Yeah, that's going to take long range there. So that might be a bit of an ask, but we'll think about what we want to do next week. As for what else we've got coming up, I do have another game that I'm going to be setting up here for later this afternoon, but I'm going to hold that close to the vest. As for what else is coming up on the channel, Wednesday, we'll be stepping back into our background campaign of Hero Realms. Saturday, Mystical Munchies will continue with Redo Month as we go back to the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Black Spire Outpost Cookbook to make the dessert, Kowakian Crumb Cake, the only good redo on the month. So this one's going to be a different fruit. And as I mentioned, next week we'll continue the background campaign. Actually, next week we'll continue the fall campaign here in B-17 Flying Fortress Leader. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.